Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes to let some more people hop on the phone, so just stay tuned. We'll get started in just a few minutes.
It's really fun where I'm sitting. I'm staring at the headquarters of HPE Aruba.
Oh.
Or HPE. Have you been in our Dallas office? That big building is HP Enterprise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, McAfee's over there, and that other building over there is the headquarters of Pepsi. So
Very interesting.
yeah, it's cool. It's a little overcast today. Normally you can see downtown Dallas from here.
So you have, I won't ask you. Hey, Bailey, are we on mute from the rest of the crowd, or are we live?
We are live.
Oh, great.
Well, Mark, thanks for that tour.
Yeah, if you ever want to come visit the Juniper office in Texas, it's actually open. So.
Good thing you didn't say anything bad about the competition. So where are we at, Bailey? How many folks do we have logged on?
So we got about 22, a couple more joining right now.
Okay.
I'd say if you want to go ahead and get started.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Bailey. Hey, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Vincic. I'm the general manager of Securematics. Welcome to our session today. I think you're going to find our FastTRAC session today be really valuable because we're really going to be talking about solutions and technology and non-technology solutions around the COVID, what we're calling the COVID-19 response. You're going to hear shortly about that. We're going to introduce some folks here, but I wanted to at least tell you a little bit about Securematics because I know there's some new people on the session here today that we haven't seen. So welcome. We're excited to have you here. And by the way, just to let everyone know that we're going to have an ongoing series around COVID-19 response that's going to start shortly after this session, not shortly after the session, but in I think a couple of weeks after this session. That's going to be part of about an 8-part series, FastTRAC, that's going to cover COVID-19 response. So what we intend to do is get really deep into the what we call the journey of an individual going to school or on campus or to work, and all the steps along the journey that we can add some value, again, technology-wise and non-technology-wise, to make sure people are entering facilities safely. And we're going to get into a lot of detail. We're going to have third parties that are going to be part of this solution as well, because it's really what we call the COVID-19 of things. It's kind of like the Internet of Things. There's a lot of components that have to come together in order to make this return to school or return to work safe, or as safe as we can make it. I should qualify that. But a little bit about Securematics before we get started. We've been around for 20 years. We do a little bit more than $250 million a year of revenue. We're focused exclusively on networking, wireless, and security products and solutions. As you notice, if you look at our website, we really primarily focus our business around 4 OEMs. Juniper and Mist is a majority of that business we focus around. Of course, we have SonicWall, Ruckus, and Pulse Secure to service different parts of our market. And we have about 2,500 VARs that do business with us. So we really appreciate that business, and it's kept us alive and productive as a company here for quite some time. The other thing I'd like to say is we're a high touch disty. Really, when you call us, you get a person, not a machine. And our whole culture around how we do business is to really form a relationship with you. So other things, don't let our size fool you. We hold around over $50 million of inventory. We're not shy in doing that. We feel like if we don't have inventory, then what's the purpose of partnering with us? We've had over a 15-year relationship with Juniper, and we're headquartered in San Diego, California, which makes it fun. When we were doing these fast tracks in person, it was a lot of fun because we can all come out to meet us at headquarters and enjoy kind of the local venues here. Now with COVID, we're kind of stuck to doing this remotely, and hopefully in sometime in 2020 we'll go back to doing things in person. So I've got two folks on the phone here. They look very serious. We have Mark Thames from Juniper/Mist. He's really their AI-driven enterprise expert, and Mark is, you know, a very good combination of what I'll call a very strategic business-driven, and also has got a good technical understanding of the AI-driven enterprise, which is kind of rare these days. So Mark, welcome. And we have Sam Fadella, and Sam is what I call our COVID expert. He's the guy who's looking at our COVID solutions. He's a consultant. He's a consultant to Securematics and Juniper as well. And what he's doing is putting together all the elements of the solution. Like I said earlier, I'm probably stealing Rose thunder here, is that the COVID solution is made up of a technical platform and a non-technical platform. And Sam will explain that in some detail when he goes through his presentation, but keep that in mind. You know, as technology companies and VARs and distributors and solution providers, we tend to focus a lot on the, you know, the sliver technology that forms a part of that solution and not the entire solution. So just a quick example of a non-technical piece of COVID-19 is really compliance rules, signage, and you know, personal workspace, kiosks are technical, but processes, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So Sam, you don't even have to talk today. I just gave it all away. But anyway, let me pass it over to Sam, and let's get started. I'm really excited about this agenda because we're finally getting into what I call, you know, kind of the deep part of this discussion, and I'm really looking forward to the next 8 to 10 fast tracks that are going to focus around this COVID-19 response. So Sam, please take it over.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. I really appreciate everybody taking some time this morning to join us. As Brian mentioned, I'm Sam Fadella. My company is 4R Safety, and I partnered with Securematics to create a great end-to-end solution to deal with this COVID response. So I've gone ahead and put up the agenda for our review, and our goal is to get people back to work safely and create some peace of mind for everybody. To do this, as Brian mentioned, we took the approach of a journey. This journey is from a person's home to work, and then once you're at work and you get through the front door and you're inside the building, to deal with the building and the space. It needs to be simple and safe and secure. We've focused on our best of breed technologies ranging from IoT devices, biometrics, Bluetooth, and wireless solutions. All of this is combined with artificial intelligence and analytics. One of the most important parts of our solution is Juniper Networks with their AI-driven network or enterprise and Mist access points. Later in this presentation, I'll dive into our journey specifically and show you our showcase, including signage, temperature sensing kiosks, lanyards, ID badges, touchless devices, and even Purell stations. With that, I'd like to introduce you to Mark Thames from Juniper. Take it away, Mark.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. Great to be here with all of you today. I'm Mark Thames. You know, I've been with Juniper a little over 5 years. I'm a part of the partner sales acceleration team, so I do global partner development and business development for the AI-driven enterprise function throughout the company. This is a fun area that's been growing, and I'll get into how we've been doing that. But we really, you know, Juniper acquired Mist about a year and a half ago, and we've been really integrating their platform into the overall campus and branch and AI-driven enterprise type solutions. So really, it's around a few things, you know, that we've done. You know, a lot of it's with user experience. You know, we realize that having insights and having actions and proactive actions and providing an amazing user experience is important. That's not just from an IT member managing the environment or an MSP managing the environment for one of their customers, but also end user experiences that the customers or the students in this case, would use based on a better user experience that we can do. But a lot of it's giving more visibility and using, AI to be able to do things. It's about AI. AI, people think AI is, Will Smith on a motorcycle getting chased by a robot, right? Or the Terminator, or Skynet. We decided not to call anything Skynet, right? It could be further from the truth. AI is really deep machine learning, where we can take a lot of data from a lot of different data points to be able to find needles in a haystack and to be able to troubleshoot better and more effectively and to be able to solve problems, right, through AI. And originally, when Mist was an independent company, their focus was on the wireless LAN. For those who don't know much about Mist, Mist was created by some of the top executives at Cisco Systems, who ran Cisco and Meraki. So Sujai Hujela ran routing, switching, and wireless for Cisco. He was the executive VP in charge of those, and Bob Friday was the CTO for wireless and actually created the first wireless systems out there. So, but they knew in order to do AI, they had to do something fundamentally different, which is build these things with microservices and a cloud architecture. It's the only way you can scale data far enough to be able to make decisions and find out how things actually work. And then really there's that digital engagement piece. And this is the part that's been really, really neat. And some of it I'm going to talk to you about later today, about how we can use this with support for contact tracing, for example. But we've had a lot of different types of clients really utilize our overall digital experience to provide a better experience for their clients. And what does that mean? What it means is we've integrated the Bluetooth low energy antennas inside of the access points. And that's something that's patented, by Juniper Mist AI. There's a 16, BLE array, so you don't have to have beacons and things like that. And what that does is that now creates Mist AI and the AI-driven enterprise to become now a platform. So if you think about a platform, think about like AWS. All they do is compute, storage, and networking, right? They're a platform. Everything else that goes on top of that is an ecosystem of different apps. Like Juniper creates a, virtual firewall, VSRX, CXRS that works on the AWS platform. Well, think of Mist as a platform, right? And the AI-driven enterprise as a platform where we can, through digital engagement, provide telemetry data, APIs, so that you can take that information and create things like contact tracing, user journey mapping, which I'll talk about. Things that are manual today and don't have technologies around it, you can now use your infrastructure with that to be able to build a better environment. And a lot of this started with some retailers, like Target gave the idea for AI and the user experiences because they were doing a large refresh and met with the Mist executives. We were still at Cisco going, are you going to solve my problems? My customer can't connect, or if they connect, I don't know if they're having a good experience. To how do I better engage with my clients? Like a Walmart, right? Or CVS Pharmacy. But the other most important part is really the schools. We have a school district in Texas that's rolled this out. We're winning in major universities that are rolling this out. But it's really important to have all this overall ecosystem that creates a platform and the technology foundation, which used to be, commodity-based network infrastructure. Now you can take a commodity-based network infrastructure and turn it into something much more valuable that makes IT departments a lot more efficient using AI and finding needles in a haystack, and troubleshooting and managing and deploying their environments, to being able to have a better user experience and digital engagement with the customers to solve business outcomes and business problems. And that's really what Juniper Mist is. So we can go to the next slide here. So what's the overall mission for AI-driven enterprise, and where are we as Juniper? Juniper, a lot of people thought that we acquired Mist because we just needed a wireless network and a wireless solution. That was partly true. We used to have wireless years ago with the Trapeze offering, and then decided to partner with, Aruba, Ruckus, Aerohive, and some others. But it turned out that we really not only needed to have our own wireless back for a complete AI-driven enterprise solution, but we needed to plug in the other Juniper offerings into it to get a complete AI-driven enterprise infrastructure solution, right? And a platform. And that's what we've been doing. So, it started off with Mist Wireless. It's now Juniper, driven by Mist AI, Juniper Mist Wireless. We then added wired. We added our EX switching line with wired assurance. And this is now live, generally available. We have lots of clients using it. We solved problems for, Walmart. They were troubleshooting an issue for 3.5 years. They couldn't figure out what it was. We solved it in 5 minutes for them with wired assurance. It turned out they had missing VLANs, right? They're all standardized on EX switching now. And I know that's a pretty big deal because I remember when I was a partner account manager, Walmart was in our territory and they would never give us the time of day. They're now standard on Juniper and Mist AI, right? They're standardized on it. And then you have the SD-WAN. This is another huge market where we've integrated WAN assurance. I don't know if you heard, but on Monday, we just announced the intent to acquire 128 Technologies. This is a AI-based SD-WAN company out of the Boston area. This acquisition is actually bigger than Mist. It's something where we're going to be integrating the 128 AI technologies for SD-WAN, not just for campus, connections and branch, but also connectivity into the cloud environments with a really fascinating AI-based SD-WAN solution. And that acquisition should close at the end of this year. Everything going well, right? And then we also have data center we're looking at integrating. So you have overall visibility in an AI engine that, yes, you can talk to. MARVIS is our ability to talk to Juniper. So if I told you, 3 years ago that, hey, you can talk to your network now and it can tell you what's wrong and you can tell it to fix it, or it can tell you what to fix and troubleshoot for you, would you like that? That's reality today. Through MARVIS and MARVIS Conversations. So, but this is the overall mission. We're right in the middle of executing this. It's been very exciting. We've already had clients that are signed up to use this entire environment. Well, we've had some major technical wins around this. But more importantly, this is for our discussion today. This is big for school districts. School districts, their WAN is important. They connect a lot of different campuses into a single network. SD-WAN is important. Their switching infrastructure is important. Their wireless is important, right? It's critical. That uptime is absolutely critical for them to be able to do their classes. It's funny. I have my high school student son. He's in school right now, and the third day of class, the school district's WAN went down, and everybody. My other two sons were at home. They couldn't even connect, and they had to cancel school that day. It's critical. You can't take attendance. Everything's online now. Your network at a school district is now mission critical. You can't take attendance. You can't do content. You can't, all the parents and everything find their grades. You can't do tests. The school doesn't function anymore. It's critical. And so by having that assurance there that it's up and running and providing a good opportunity, a stable environment is very important. But then being able to take advantage of the things, it being a platform that we'll talk about later, specifically around opening up safely around COVID, is also very important. So can we go to the next slide? Let me talk to you about why this is all important. So what's the point? What's the point of AI-driven enterprise? Really, the point is giving you better insight into user experiences through extensive data collection and analysis. The reason why we were able to do this is because we used, put this in a hyperscaler. It takes a lot of data collection. A controller-based system, it doesn't work. You have to gather a lot of data from everything from your routers, your switches, your access points, your firewalls, your circuits, the applications you're using like GoToMeeting or Zoom. All that is important to understand what's happening, to find out where a problem is. And having an integrated AI engine, this can bring automation and insight without having for expensive overlay hardware and software. What does that mean? I remember when I was at Polycom, now Poly, and Sam was there too. Actually, Sam sold me all this stuff as a partner, which is kind of funny. But I had to buy a $15,000 piece of hardware called InioQuest to troubleshoot my immersive telepresence video rooms. And that was more costly than the routers. And yes, I was on Juniper routers at that time. And we had problems to where I had one outage I remember where it took 3.5 weeks. We had 2 video systems that were talking between our NOC provider and our executives that was having tons of problems. We couldn't figure it out. We replaced circuits. We RMA'd did Juniper equipment. We did all these things because we couldn't find out where the problem was. And so I finally got this $15,000 piece of equipment approved. We put it in less than 5 minutes. We found out that the third-party NOC had a misconfiguration on their endpoint. I would have found that with Mist immediately through using AI, right? I could have solved all those problems. But now we can do it without having to buy a $15,000 piece of hardware that was in line to my network. Remember, I had to buy about 50 of those. How much did that cost me? Now you get that as a part of the AI-driven enterprise. And then also have something that's programmable that enables workflow and proactive IT operations. Imagine this before, I mean, who likes troubleshooting? Do you guys like troubleshooting? I didn't like it. You know, how can I be more proactive with troubleshooting? You know, how could I come in and in the morning, instead of all of my engineers getting, you know, called in the middle of the night or on weekends if there's a problem, it might not have been a P1, but I just log in the next day and it tells me, hey, you have these 8 things to fix that we found wrong. You have bad cables, you have a missing VLAN here, you have a negotiation mismatch, you know, you have a problem here with association with your wireless network. You have these people that weren't able to connect because they were having DHCP issues, and tell you, oh, by the way, I already fixed all these, but these I need you to go fix. You need to go replace these cables and you need to go make these configuration changes. It's as simple as that, right? And then, you know, having microservices and a cloud architecture, this brings resiliency in there. You know, I always used to say, when does AWS go down? But it was kind of interesting because Azure just went down a few weeks ago when they screwed up their Active Directory update. But, you know, it's in multiple, you know, hyperscalers for resiliency and to be up, because it has to be up and running. Your network has to be up and running. You know, if it goes down, you know, I talked about all those things that you can't do, right? And so that agility of network operations is also important, because, you know, now you can, you know, we've had zero touch provisioning and things before, but now with this, how many times have you tried to sell Juniper and they told you, I don't want to learn a new operating system again. I already know Cisco ILS, or I already know another operating system. I don't want to teach my folks. And more importantly, in school districts, I remember when I was working with Sam, I was selling, you know, trying to sell Juniper into a school district, and we lost because it was too complex. And they would have to get all these certifications. And I remember we lost that deal to another Securematics, you know, partner, SonicWall, because it was, you know, for them at the time, it was easier. Right? But now what this allows us to do is make it really simple, and then provide that to this department to where it was a lot easier for them to do, improving that user experience. And then also, you know, they didn't have a lot of IT staff. They didn't have a huge IT staff. And so being able to increase their operation, you know, effectiveness made it easier for them so that they weren't firefighting all the time. So that's really the point around AI-driven enterprise. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I want to introduce you to someone named MARVIS. And I love MARVIS. I'm trying to make MARVIS action figures, right? Kind of like the JKD. But MARVIS is the virtual network assistant. So if I could tell you, or you could tell your partners, you could go to them and say, look, I know your network's growing constantly. You're constantly adding new devices to your network, IoT devices, you know, adding a kiosk to your network. You're always having to add all these things, but you're not getting any new headcount. You know, for school districts especially, you know, I've talked to school districts that have a retention problem with engineers, because as soon as they get all these huge certifications, all this experience, a lot of them leave to go work for larger companies. I remember the school district I was working with was in San Antonio, Texas, and that's where Rackspace was. And anytime their network engineers and their engineers got all these certs, they'd quit and go to Rackspace and they have to start over again. So what if I told you I could give you a new part of your IT team that is fully certified and fully trained? You don't have to teach them environment. They can learn your entire environment. They're available 24/7. They're going to troubleshoot you and probably be the best troubleshooter you have on staff. And they're going to just come and show you the different things that your folks need to do. They report to you. You don't need a head count for them. They can't quit on you. Would you want that? Meet MARVIS. This is our virtual network assistant. And MARVIS is great. We have a new way to interface with MARVIS Conversations. It's kind of like a chatbot window, right? So you can talk to MARVIS. Hey, I'm having a problem. You know, Sam is having issues with his Zoom call. Well, let me go find out. You ask MARVIS, just natural language. Talk to MARVIS or type it in the chatbot window. Sam is having issues because of this. Did this solve your problem? Yes or no? Yes, I did. Great. Or proactively, when you come into work, you can say, MARVIS can tell you, hey, you know, while you're gone, since the last time you logged in, Sam has had these problems, or you need to go fix these things because we found these issues that I can't fix, because it can also fix it with automation, right? But these are the things that we need a human to go fix, and like a bad cable. So, and we have a good story with this is we use this with ServiceNow, which ironically is a help desk ticketing company. They had 200 help desk tickets a month for their wireless network. We've taken them now down to 2. MARVIS solves the rest of them for them. So who wouldn't want that as a part of their IT department? And the other thing that you have to remember is this is not to make engineers and, you know, troubleshooters and these people, they provide value to their company because they're great at troubleshooting, or that's their value, right? They think that, oh no, if I have AI, what good am I? I'm going to lose my job. Am I going to be irrelevant? Absolutely not. What it does is it makes them a rock star. They're able to troubleshoot faster. They're able to fix problems faster. They're able to be more strategic and say, hey, I can build out my environment without having to ask my boss for more headcount. I can handle it. Turns them into rock stars. I remember when I first moved to Juniper, I had 7 full-time network engineers. It would take them over 3 weeks to make one change on my network. So if I had one of them quit, we'd have to make a change on the network to change the root password. That took 3 weeks, nights and weekends, change control, right? And when I first went to Junos and Juniper, I went down to 1 engineer, maybe a week to do that. Now with MARVIS and with AI and with the Mist AI cloud, boom, done. And it's pretty impressive. It's pretty crazy, right? So this is MARVIS. I'd like to, meet MARVIS and know what that can do. And the other thing too is, can you go to the next slide? What don't I get that I already have in my legacy network? Number one, you don't have to learn Junos anymore. Think about that. If I told you, hey, I'm going to give you an iPhone, right? But the only way you could use it is to learn Apple iOS inside and out to troubleshoot your iPhone. Do you think everybody would want iPhones? No, they go in, they want to take pictures, they want to listen to music, they want to make a phone call, they want to go, do a chat, they want to do this, they want to play a game. They don't have to learn Apple iOS or Android. Same thing now, you don't need to, and they say, oh, well, I got to be really, really good at the operating system because I need to learn how to troubleshoot. We're doing the troubleshooting for you anyway. And so we're now doing it through a user experience. Focuses on the user experience. And then service level expectations and metrics. How good am I performing? Where's the problem? How do I look at an SLE and find out, ooh, okay, I'm having a problem. We know it's on my wide area network, but is it with the router or the gateway? Is it with the circuit? Is it with the application? I can now show you where your health is with all these with service level expectations. And then you can talk to MARVIS to find out what actually broke. And then MARVIS will tell you what to do to fix it if MARVIS can't fix it, themselves, right? So you get those things. You don't get those things with legacy, network environments, right? In the modern cloud for agility, resilience, and scale. A lot of networks that are, controller-based, on-prem only, right? If something goes down, they go down. You have a core switch go out, boom, you're dead, right? But if you have, I actually used Juniper with virtual chassis that solved that problem, right? But there's other things you can do that where it has to be up and running 24/7. It's critical. If a school goes down, they can't teach. Think about that. That's send everyone home. All right, it's a big problem. And so, but the other things you don't get with your legacy network is the AI driven, the automation, the insight, what's really happening, and actions. Tell me what's going on. We had a partner create an app for their VIPs, their exec staff, that when they had a problem, the exec would automatically get a notification that IT was already on it before they had to complain and call. Yep, you're having an issue, you might know but not know about it or not. IT's already on it, we're already fixing it. It should be up and running by this time. We already know what the problem is. Before, you know what that was like? It was like the CFO would call the CIO would call me, I would call the network engineer would be troubleshooting it. I would call them every 5 minutes for an update because my CIO wanted an update, the CFO wanted an update, and then my engineer, I'm like, is it fixed yet? Is it fixed yet? And they're like, no, all I'm doing is talking to you all the time. That's what it's like on a legacy network. Now it's proactive. Ooh, we just had a problem. I might not even have known we had a problem because we didn't even have a user call in with that problem yet. I can now be proactive. I already know what the problem is, so I don't have to spend my time troubleshooting. I can now be proactive to go tell my boss and the VIPs and their management, hey, we know there's a problem. We're already on it. It should be up and running, no problem. And then dramatically increase your uptime. That is what you don't get with your legacy network that you do get with the AI-driven enterprise, right? And then the virtual Bluetooth, the virtual BLE, this is what enables businesses to provide location-based services. This does telemetry. This is what really truly creates Mist as a platform, right? We have partners that are creating mobile applications for schools, for universities, for retail, for everything, for hospitals. But like for a school district, we have a partner that's been able to create a mobile app that it can take their attendance. It can do their congestion hot zone notification for COVID response. It can do first responder things to show who's in the classroom where are the kids, are they walking around? You can actually see them walking around. That's crazy, where have they gone? There's a lot of things you can do with these applications with virtual Bluetooth Low Energy, and also use that information, that telemetry information and location, indoor location-based information for premium analytics reporting, which I'll get into a little bit as well on the second part of this. But there's things that you could not do before that you can do now around location services. By floor, by the way, GPS is going to look at a building, so tell you what, on a physical map. Does it know what floor you're on? Does it know how to tell you how to get from one floor to the other because you're trying to find someone or you're trying to find a location, right? Let's say a student's having an issue or a teacher calls and has an issue. You can even do it in a physical map where if somebody needs to go help them, they can see it like an Uber when they're on their way. There's so many things you can do with virtual Bluetooth Low Energy, especially around education. It's absolutely phenomenal, right? You can have a thing where if a kid goes and plays hooky and tries to leave the campus, that it automatically notifies the teacher and notifies the parents. Think about that. I wouldn't like that as a kid, right? But parents would, teachers would. Safety is of top concern, right? So those are things. I'm going to go into more of the COVID-19 support for contact tracing technologies in a little bit later. But can you go to the next slide? So I'm going to kind of turn it over here to Sam, where he can talk more about 4R safety, and then I'll get back into some more of the specific, COVID-19 response tools that can be used using the MIST platform and the AI-driven platform. So Sam, I'll hand it over to you now.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mark. Bailey, can you next slide, please? Okay, so we kind of started off a little bit and we talked about this journey. And from our perspective, just what's the journey? And so the journey in our mind, we thought about the schools, the verticals, what parents have to go through to get their children ready to go to school. We thought about employees at home having to get to work. And, for us, that's the first mile. So what can you do at home to deal with COVID and make sure you're safe? And, I've done a whole bunch of research. There's a bunch of ways to do this. There's very manual ways. You can take your own temperature. You can answer a questionnaire. And so we thought, okay, you're at home. How about a mobile app on your phone with some basic questions that you can answer? Maybe, how are you feeling? Has anybody in your family gotten COVID, et cetera? And you pass all these, you hop in the car, and this mobile app can tie back into work, for example, if you desire, or it could just be kind of a self-assessment tool. And you go ahead and you hop in your car and you go to work or school. Once you get to school, you're at the front door. Now what? It's you could have somebody posted at the door taking temperatures with a touchless thermometer. You could do something of that nature. Or, I've even seen in restaurants where they have you sign a piece of paper saying you showed up. So at least from a contact tracing perspective, somebody showed up. But we're thinking to ourselves, we can do way better than that. So we thought I did quite a bit of research, and we discovered there's a bunch of temperature sensing kiosks. Some have facial recognition, and now you got facial recognition, temperature screening, and you can even build upon that if you like. You can add locking capabilities. You can add other devices to that kiosk to enhance kind of that access control, if you want to call it that. And that could include lanyards, ID cards, etc. So you pass the temperature scan, you're recognized, we all know who you are, you get to come inside. That's the next step of the journey. Now you're inside. So how do we know folks inside, or at least have passed some form of or some process to make sure that they're okay? No guarantees, but at least we know they don't have a temperature, they've answered a questionnaire, and we can now we can display a green pass or a QR code on their actual phone. We can actually attach printers, print off a little QR code paper badge where they can, then go and get access to various places with their QR code. And you've got that contact tracing log, and where folks can actually see, these people logged in at this time, and away they go. So the other part of this too is once you're inside, there's contact tracing, or we like to call it breadcrumbs, and congestion monitoring, or capacity monitoring, if you want to call it that, and then alerting. So throughout the entire journey, we also want to deal with things like, how do we protect the school or the company from a regulatory perspective? Regulations are changing almost, it seems like, practically daily. There's reporting requirements from an HR perspective. And of course, we want to do all of this safely. We want to respect privacy data. We want to deal with any HIPAA issues if there may be. If you're in California, there's a law called SB 1159, which actually has punitive requirements around it. So we want to help our customers deal with all of these things. Next slide, please. So the big picture, this is just kind of a little pictorial diagram of what I talked about. You're at home on your mobile phone, you can go ahead and answer a questionnaire. And let's say somebody doesn't have a mobile phone. Well, that's okay. Once they get on to the on-premise, we've got a kiosk that can have the questionnaire on it as well. So it's not necessarily mandatory to have that phone. And again, we want to be able to take all of this information. We want to log it privately, securely. We want to make sure it's HIPAA compliant. And there's other things you can do at home as well. You can have wearable devices that can deal with temperature and other concerns around that. Then we want to take all this data, we want to put it into an analytics system and keep track of that on the back end. And then once folks are on site, now we can employ great technologies like Juniper. We can use a Juniper AP as a gateway, and then we can put a bunch of BLE sensors around on the on-premise, and now we have a really granular, high-resolution solution for basically doing contact tracing, following folks around, doing capacity alerting, things of that nature. So next slide, please. So something serious when we have a brand new TLA, Internet of Behavior, IOB. Just popped up on Gartner, so I guess it's real now. So this is our vision of what the heck is Internet of Behavior. Well, like everything, it's a process. This is kind of an infographic describing my interpretation of this process. You have to have the administrative piece. This is where you can set thresholds. For example, you want your temperature threshold to be 100.4. Then here's the self-assessment piece where it can be, an iPhone, like as we discussed, with a questionnaire on it. Then you're going to come to the front door. That's where health screening is going to take place. Once you're, from that point forward, contact tracing, and then inside, maybe there's a particular conference room that has a certain capacity. You can basically set this capacity. And the great thing about talking about Juniper Mist and premium analytics, which I know Mark will go into a little later, is you can actually define these spaces and put in some of these thresholds from an administrative perspective. And then most importantly, well, how the heck do you do your due diligence, keep all this stuff private and log it and be able to report it? And that's the final step from a compliance perspective. We need to be able to track all this and say, hey, look at all this stuff that we've done. So next slide, please. So I just kind of wanted to get into the process just real quick about this kiosk idea and just actually how simple it is. So one of the whole point from an administrative perspective, you get to create the health questions. You can enter the names, phone numbers, or whatever metrics you want, and that way it's controlled. It's not on the kiosk. There's no data stored on the kiosk. It's very simple. The user gets an SMS link, secure link. All they have to do, they take a picture with their phone. We can call that a selfie, and then they're registered. Once they're registered at that point, that data is actually encrypted. And the great thing about this, they're not taking a picture. It's actually vectors, or it's like a mathematical algorithm, and it's encrypted, stored in the cloud securely. So the next time they come up to that kiosk, it recognizes them within about 2 seconds, and then their temperature scan's taken, and then they're given either the ability of going in or not. If we add the questionnaire on the kiosk, it's touchless, so I think this is a great point. You don't have to touch this kiosk at all. You can actually do an OK sign, or you can do a palm sign for answering the questions. And then assuming everything's great, you get a nice healthy green badge and in you go. Next slide, please. And just here's kind of another pictorial of checking, scanning, and clearing. By the way, if anybody has any questions, please, toss them out there. Both Mark and I would love to answer questions as we go if you have something you're curious about. So again, I think we kind of, thank you. So we touched a little bit about telemetry, and just from a perspective of good, better, best. So the nice thing about this, it's very modular. If you want to, as an organization, you get to pick, how manual or how automated you want this process. And really, we like to talk about resolution. Are you okay with kind of the, just checking folks as they come in through the front door, or do you really want to get some granularity all the way from better to best and just really understand what's going on within your building? So from a good perspective, again, facial recognition and temperature sensing kiosks, better, add lanyards, BLE lanyards, wristbands or ID cards, and all of these have BLE. So once you go inside, you can interact with the BLE sensors that Juniper offers, and you're able to get a much granular picture of movement and who's going where. And then finally, the best solution is taking all of that and adding it into a analytics platform where you can really analyze that data and then apply it to your policies. Okay, go ahead, Bailey. So here's just an idea of what our safe office solution includes. We mentioned missed Wi-Fi APs, missed BT solutions. So if you think about it, the reason that it's this way, the missed AP, that's the gateway. And then you're adding a bunch of BT solutions around that all funnel back to that gateway. And that's how your data is getting back into this analytics platform. And I don't want to get into too much of a technical discussion. I'll leave that for Mark, but that's really the key here. And that's what's allowing you to do proximity tracing. If we need more density, we can add contact IO devices. And this is where you're going to get your lanyards, your wristbands, and your ID cards. We talked about the kiosk extensively. And then as Brian mentioned at the very beginning of this, this is more than just technology. This is also signage, it's touchless devices throughout your facility, in your restrooms, et cetera, and it's safe distancing. And then finally, how to control all of this thing. We talked about an analytics dashboard. Next slide, please. Okay, so here, what Securematics has done is we've created a showcase so that we wanted to basically vet out all these solutions and come up with the best possible solution. So what you're looking at right here is your kiosk at the very beginning of the entrance. Again, facial recognition, temperature sensing, and you can even add a questionnaire onto this kiosk, as well as it can actually unlock the door. Next slide. Here's an example. As you can see, we mentioned the Purell dispenser, signs, social distancing reminders. You can see in the center picture there, we've got some gloves, we've got some masks, we've got actually a handheld temperature scanner. So, and that's the other thing too. There's definitely some policy conversation around this, where you have to think about, well, what do you do if somebody actually does have a temperature? How do you deal with that? Well, if it's a school and there's a school nurse, maybe you send the person to the nurse. They validate the fact that, oh, well, yep, there sure is a temperature. Let's either do a test or send them somewhere where they can get a test. And that, so you have to have that mitigation strategy defined and in place. So you can see as a backup here, we're showing a thermometer as well. Next slide. Okay, and here, so the Securematics headquarters is a very industrial building, and you can see what we've done. If you look closely in each one of these pictures, those are Juniper Mist access points and BLE sensors, and it just worked out great. One gateway for, I think we used 6 BLE sensors, and we had great super granular visibility to everybody walking around in the facility. So this is a great showcase just to basically show how this is really working in real time. Next slide. Here's another picture of how we managed to do it. It was kind of creative. So the wiring runs right down the middle of the pipe to the access points. And the theory here is you do want the optimum position for these access points is 6 to 15 feet, or I'm sorry, 8 to 15 feet. So you kind of want to have the access point within that range. And so that's what we've done here. Next slide. Here's a view of the front door where things are kind of set up in the front, and then another access point. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit, what do I do? And, what makes me a COVID expert, if you want to put it that way. It's been kind of interesting. So I've spent most of my career in networking and security. So I'm pretty used to compliance. I'm used to policy creation. I'm used to putting solutions together that make sense and solve a problem. So what I can do specifically for you is I can go into a customer, very used to doing assessments. I can understand where your customers may be at today. And, from a COVID perspective, we can look at compliance, we can look at regulatory requirements, and then we can figure out, okay, well, they've done A and C, maybe they need to do B, D, and E. Again, I can identify these remaining issues, and I can make sure that they're actually checking all of the boxes. And it is kind of interesting. I've been definitely keeping in looking at CDC requirements, OSHA requirements, state and local government requirements, and it's interesting. It's very much a moving target. So it's something that really just needs kind of constant attention. I also attended some HR seminars and things like that. And there's a lot of things around workers' comp that you have to take into consideration as well, especially from a reporting perspective. So I can really help with all of these things. And for me, what we can do is we can create for your customer a biosecurity program. And you can think of this as a cybersecurity program if you want, or a business continuity program, because it has similar elements. But this way, we understand what the customer wants. We understand what they, or we can at least identify what they haven't done and they should do, and then they can decide what they want to do. Now we can design the perfect solution for them with all of these various components, and then we can get that implemented for you. And the thing is here, depending on your organization, maybe you can do all of these things, and that's great. But just wanted to make sure that you knew if you're going to go ahead and talk to your customers about dealing with this COVID response, you're not on your own. You've got support, you've got backup, and you've got help. And then finally, as I mentioned, support, monitoring, and alerting, we can help you with all of those things as well. So next slide, please. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Mark to finish us off here.
All right, it was funny. I was just looking at my phone. I was just looking at an email from my middle schoolers' school, even though they're doing the homeschooling right now because they altered them. Half of them go to school early and then half of them go later, and they split them up. But yeah, just got a Dear Pearson Middle School parents. Pearson Middle School has 2 people on campus who have tested positive for COVID-19. This letter is to inform you the steps and blah blah. This is real. Just this is email within the last 24 hours, right? Now, do they close down? Do they shut every school down? Oh, that one kid, we got to shut it all down. I mean, look what that's had the impact on the NFL. They've had to reschedule games, and now we have football 7 days a week. Isn't that great? But in all honesty here, there's a couple things here that are these true questions that are being asked of enterprise IT. I classify, the K through 12, IT staff as we classify it as an enterprise type account, right? So this is relevant for them. But there are certain things that, directors of IT, CIOs are being asked to do by their management. And it's very interesting. I can tell you with Juniper, For the first time, Brad, our head of physical security, is now on E-staff. When is the last time did you know that a physical security, officer was actually on the executive staff? That's how serious this is, right? But there's a lot of questions being asked on, I need a capability to do this. How do I do it, right? Because I can guarantee you right now that school, even though my kids are on Zoom right now versus in that classroom, they're having to deal with this. But they're having to deal with it manually. You look at proximity tracing, contact tracing. Let's talk about this for a second, because I want to clear something up here. This has gotten a bad rap. The news, all the different, there's a lot of people out there saying this is Big Brother, it's the devil, it's horrible, don't lose your privacy, all this kind of stuff. But you need to understand a few things about this. The way that it was done originally was done incorrectly, but it was not done by the United States. The way things were done overseas, especially like in China, they would literally target you. If you've been exposed, they color coded you, red, yellow, green. They would lock you in your homes and put actual wire on the outside of the door to lock you in so you couldn't get outside. They tracked everyone you went, where you went, how you went, using GPS. These things don't fly in the United States. And then you look at some countries that were, said they were applauded for how they did it, but you don't realize what they really did. And those things won't fly in the United States. Let's take South Korea as an example. They did contact tracing. They were very manual with it. But what they did is they went and did it. But if you were told to quarantine and you got caught leaving even once because they were watching on GPS, they put an ankle bracelet on you so you couldn't leave your house or apartment. Do you think that's going to fly in the United States? And then Singapore went out and they were the first ones to use Bluetooth Low Energy to create a contact tracing app. I actually downloaded it to see what it would do. And the first thing it did is wanted to access my contacts. And I said, no, but I'll let you access my favorites. My son comes in, Dad, why did I get a text message telling me to download this app and that, I need this COVID-19 thing? They were going to send every single person in my contacts a text message telling them to download this app, and then I told them to do it. Do you think that's going to fly? Of course, that's horrible, right? The other reason why a lot of people didn't use the Bluetooth Low Energy version of it was because you had to have the app open 24/7 for you to work, and it drained everyone's phone's batteries. So it only got like 25% usage, and that was the first BLE app out of Singapore. And then we had some of our organizations more in the U.S. like MIT. They built a supercomputer and an app called Private Kit that would use GPS and things like that. And so all the news is like, oh, contact tracing, this is Big Brother. They're going to go expose you. They're going to label you. You're going to walk in an office. They're going to say, no, you have the cooties. You can't come in here. They're going to label people like they did in China. Absolutely not. And so we knew that wouldn't fly. And the most important things that we had to take in consideration when looking at a contact tracing or proximity tracing was how to do it in a way that respects privacy, right? We have laws in this country. We have HIPAA, right? You can't, imagine what would happen to a school district if they just sent everyone, oh, your kid has the cooties, right? Or has a COVID-19. They can't do that legally. There's a lot of privacy laws and regulations around this stuff. And so two things happened. One, I'm really not going to go into, but Apple and Google got together and built an actual API in your phone that your state would have to create an app for that uses a privacy way using Bluetooth Low Energy, which is a great solution. Challenge is not every state can do it because the state has to make their own app. Some of them have done it, like South Dakota, South Carolina, Alabama. They have their apps, but again, it's not a win for all, but it doesn't solve these problems. And so contact tracing, and by the way, that Apple app, they renamed it 4 times before they released it because of all the negative press on contact tracing. And then they call it, contact tracking. Then they called it proximity tracing. Now they've called it COVID-19 exposure notification logging. It's because it has such a bad rap in the media. But to be honest with you, that little note I got from the school district said that they did contact tracing. Well, they didn't do it through technology. They did it through calling up people when they're sick and finding out, who did you go to? Who was in your classroom? Were you there at least 15 minutes? So I'll give you an example. In our high school, I know for a fact that my son's school, the Spanish teacher, came down with COVID-19. And my friend, I only know this because my friend told me his daughter was in that class. Well, I got the notice that night. We went and played golf the day before, so we're all freaked out that we had COVID-19. that he's like, yeah, my daughter, we got notified as the parents because my daughter was in that classroom. But then the doctor said, oh, well, they were in there for, the teacher was in there for 45 minutes and they all had masks on. So just monitor your child and, you don't need to do anything unless she comes down with symptoms. It's not the way to do it. We need technology. So they need a way that you can have technology that can show who has been contacted with somebody else, because otherwise there could be liability, right? Congestion hot zone notification. This is interesting because, there's two parts of this. There's, are we breaking social distancing guidelines? Meaning, do we have too many people? So in the school, you can say, hey, there's too many kids congregating in this area of the cafeteria or the gym, or they're all in this hallway and there's too many in there. We need to go, spread that out, and, congestion hot zone. It's kind of like this. When you go, I went to a Home Depot during the time when, back in May when they first opened up Texas, and they have somebody with like a nightclub clicker at the front door. You have to go through the front door. You had to stand in line 6 feet apart and wait to get in the door because they can only have 25 people in the store. Well, it's funny because it was in spring, and once you get in the store, 95% of the people were in the garden center. Kind of useless, right? Nobody else was in the store. It's kind of like when you go to the grocery store, everybody's in the produce aisle, right? Well, how do you control that? Well, you can control that through congestion and hot zone notification and by using maps. Think of a Home Depot or think of a school. There could be the different classroom areas, the cafeteria, the gym, the theater, right? The outside, the playground. They can create zones and create how many folks do we need in those zones, right, to do things. So they need this. And user self-policing. We had a hotel chain that actually, it's at Dubai, that 5-star sailboat building in Dubai, the Al Burj Dubai Hotel. It's the only 7-diamond hotel in the world. They're using this because they wanted to show if their beaches were crowded or their gyms were crowded. So imagine you go to a hotel and you're like, I want to go to the gym. You can just look on that app for that hotel's app and say, yeah, you know what? The gym's empty right now. I can go. Or, oh, there's already too many people in there. I don't need to go walk down there and stand in the elevator and wait, right? And then talk about another things that on here. Speaking of elevators, think of touchless environments. Do you want to touch anything anymore? You want to go touch everything? Speaking of Home Depot, you go in there, you got to pick up a scanner that somebody else has had their whole hand wrapped around, scan everything, put your credit card in, or you could use Apple Pay. Then you got to sign it with a pen and touch a touch screen. Does anybody want to do that anymore? What about an elevator? You want to go touch an elevator button? So, just one little cool thing you could do with Mist, with the virtual beacon, is we had a customer say for an elevator, because there are some schools with elevators. There's some 3-story high schools, right? 2 stories, they did away with the virtual beacon to where when you get in the elevator lobby or near to it, it opens up and wakes up the app on your phone that knows what floor you're trying to go on. You just hit the scanner and you don't have to touch any buttons. It takes you to your floor. Something you can do with Mist, right? Pretty interesting. But these things are things we need to do. We need to enforce social distancing, right? You can't have too many kids all sitting next to each other in the theater or in the cafeteria. You got to be able to police that up. Give notifications to the school staff going, oh, I told those rascals, don't go out there and have 20 kids in one corner. Go break them up. You can now see that on a map and see that, right? Entry testing with the kiosks, like Sam talked about. But what technology do they need? What do they need to be able to do this? The fact is they need technology. The good news is they can use their Bluetooth Low Energy and their Wi-Fi network and their network infrastructure to be able to be the platform that can enable all of this. And that's critical. That's really critical. And so let's go to the next slide here. So what exactly does Juniper Mist provide as far as use cases that can be used, especially in schools? And there's a couple that I want to go through. One is proactive, the other 2 are reactive. And they're very, very interesting. And I'm fortunate in the role that I'm in that I see a lot of different things partners are building already, with either applications or using our premium analytics to create reporting and things. I've seen some just amazing tools that our partners are providing, like to school districts and universities, as a value add that, by the way, is very profitable for them, because when they build these things, they're charging subscriptions to them and they're making even more money as a partner. So don't forget that piece, right? That also makes this turnkey. But what are the 3 use cases for support for contact tracing that we have with the Juniper, driven by the Mist AI? The first I'll talk about is the proactive one. This is the congestion notification, right? The congestion notification is if there's too many people in an area, how do you notify somebody of it? And you can do this in a lot of ways. There's a new occupancy analysis analytics menu that's by default in the MIS Cloud. When you log into the MIS Cloud, what you do is, let's say you have a school. You could break up the school by zones, and based on those zones, put limits on how many people can be in there, right? And this could be a good thing for parents too, as a liability thing, because they can prove to the parents that they're enforcing the social distancing and not overloading classrooms. So let's say you pick a classroom, and each classroom is a zone. You can say there's need to be no more than 15 people in a classroom. You can now prove it through the congestion notification that that wasn't breached and that many people weren't in there. And how do you do that? You can use things like this. This is a Bluetooth low energy badge. I have my Juniper badge. This is getting replaced with this. This is an RFID badge. This is a Bluetooth low energy badge. If you have a badge, you can even turn it on. See, it's blinking, right? So you can give each student one of these. It can identify the student or the faculty, right? It plugs into the platform, the MIST platform, which basically lets you now see where that person with that badge is. You're gonna do things, we know what MAC addresses look like on phones, like Android and iOS, so we can tell if it's someone's phone. So you can determine if it's actually a person with that, or if it's just an IoT device, like a robot, right? Yes, we have robots now. And I'm not talking about MARVIS, our virtual network assistant. But with congestion notification, this is amazing because you can use it both internally from a compliance standpoint to create zones and alert on those zones when they're being violated, when too many people are going into a zone based on the thresholds that you set for that zone. And then you can also do it for legal liability. We're enforcing the rules. Oh, we want to go shut your school down. Hey, we're enforcing the rules, right? I can see this being used in bars and restaurants and retail. We've had a lot of them lose their licenses because they've let in too many people. Now you have proof that you're doing this from a legal liability standpoint. So congestion notification is proactive. You can look at a map, you can see it, it's already in the MIST Cloud. If you want to see, you can build that into a mobile application, which is really neat. We've had some partners with school district customers build a mobile app that uses the congestion notification map inside of their app that they sell a subscription to that school district to use. Which is great. So you can see that. So that's one of the use cases. And then the self-policing is also a part of this. If you have, kids that want to see, oh, do I want to go in the area? Hey, I want to go into the cafeteria. It's my time. Or where do I want to go? No, that's too crowded. That's not. They can have an app to do that too. It's pretty cool. The other two are reactive, and they're still very important. And instead of being done through a mobile application or a preset, a reporting window that's already in the MIST Cloud, these two things are done with our premium analytics software subscription, where we can do a lot of things with building reports using the technology that provide valuable information to the people that are sending me the email saying somebody got sick, or notifying parents, or making a decision on what to do. And the two things are proximity tracing, which is also known as contact tracing. Please do not use contact tracking. Contact tracking is what they did in China. Contact tracking is what they are making a bad word on the news. I'm talking about contact tracing through a privacy way of doing it. We are not violating people's privacy through this, okay? But what this does is this allows us to know, based on either the Bluetooth ID, a phone, a device that can be with a person, that we can see who somebody came into contact with, or came into, within 6 feet, or whatever that threshold you have is, right? And how long they were next to that person. So were they there for 5 minutes? Were they there for 15 minutes, 30 minutes? You can tell how long that person might have been exposed to somebody else. But this now allows you to use your MIST as a platform, right, to get that telemetry data into a report that can identify an individual and let us know. But you can even do it without that person's name. You can do it by the number of the badge that's on it. That person could be identified as CUXOGS in the system, so that you're not violating their privacy to know exactly who it was, right? But HR can see that, right? But then IT can't, for example. So you can follow privacy laws. But what it allows you to do is now run a report that you as a partner can give to your school. So if you're doing a managed service with that school, or you're creating these reports for that school as a service, or teaching them, or building templates that they can use that you sell to them, when somebody does test positive, they can easily go in and run a report through Premium Analytics that tells exactly who those people were in contact with. So now you can do a real notification to those parents, as an example, of who's been exposed and how long they were exposed. And the second is a user journey map. A user journey map can tell you exactly where on campus they went, right? And so you can say, okay, my son, Austin, he basically went in through the back door because he walked to school, parked his bike. He went into here. His classrooms were over to the left. He only went to these areas of the building. He went outside for PE, he came back in. He ate outside with his friends. He never went to the cafeteria, didn't go inside the gym that day, didn't go in the theater, but he only went to these classrooms. Now you can see exactly where the person who was infected or tested positive actually went. And then you can also track the people that were exposed over a certain amount of time if they went in. And you can actually, I've seen reports where you can see the footprints of where they've gone, or as Sam likes to say, the breadcrumbs of exactly where they walked. Why is this important? I'll give you an example. This has nothing to do with the school, but I remember about a month ago, somebody, the first person to contract the COVID-19 at the White House, because now we know that a lot of people contracted the COVID-19 at the White House, but the first one that shut down the administrative building was a contractor that worked in a cafe, right? And this is a massive administrative building with hundreds and hundreds of employees, multiple floors, massive facility. But what they did is they knew that this employee or this contractor only walked in through the entryway to go through security and walked over here and went into that part of the building. If they would have had user journey mapping and contact tracing, they wouldn't have to shut the whole building down. Instead, what did they have to do? They had to shut down the entire facility for 2 full weeks, send everybody home, stop everything, clean the entire facility. One of my friends is the CEO of a company here in Dallas, and he basically had one person test positive. He had to send his entire staff home for 2 weeks and clean the facility. It cost him $10,000 to clean the facility. How much is that going to cost the school district, right? So what it does is by using these tools and having this visibility with our Premium Analytics, you can now have this information to know if you got to close down, who you need to announce an alert, how you have a record of doing it, do it through the HR department, and having a privacy way of doing it, and see really where people have gone, so you don't have to shut down. And because I can tell you, I've probably gotten 5 notifications over the last 3 weeks from my son's high school of somebody infected, but guess what? They haven't had to shut down. But a lot of parents are still on edge, and a lot more parents are still keeping their kids from going to class. We have a lot of friends who won't let their children go to the high school yet, or go to the middle school yet, or the elementary school yet, because they're not confident and not comfortable with it. What these tools will do is get another level of comfort that the schools are doing their due diligence to allow their parents to want to be able to feel more confident in sending their children back to class and being able to open safer. So those are really the 3 things that we do as far as support for contact tracing within the Mist AI Cloud and the tools that we have with both. You can use an application or our Premium Analytics to create reporting for it. And it's a great way and a great opportunity for you as a partner to be able to create a turnkey solution. Well, you have this turnkey solution where you can offer this to go into a school. You're going to be on the top of the list. So you have a platform to do it. You have applications that can work with it. You have reporting capabilities. You have MSP capabilities to manage their environments for them. You have things like MARVIS, and you have a stable platform to keep them up and running. You got the whole turnkey solution here. And then in working with Sam and working with our safety and working with Securematics and working with the other vendors for the whole solution, you can go into a school with an entire solution to help them confidently open up safely and be able to do that. And also, more importantly, not just confidently open up with the district, but with the parents and the students, right? And so those are things you can do here. So go to the next slide, please. There's not any questions here. And then, so why partner with us? It's kind of like the last why Juniper Mist, right? We're cloud first. We don't have any on-prem. It's very simple to deploy this. It's very fast. I remember I did a school district, a large school district, which was EX switching in Aruba. This is obviously before Mist's day. It took us almost 2 years to deploy that school district. It was a very large, one of the largest school districts in the country. It was a very, very long deployment because we had to do everything manually. We had to do site. We just deployed a school district here in the Dallas area in less than 2 months. They were able to go in with all the zero-touch provisioning for both the switching and the APs. They were able to go into a classroom and the kids were out at at recess and do the class. They knocked the whole thing out. They were knocking out schools like that, right? The BLE, this is huge. You can build apps, you can build mobile apps, you can build things. This is a brand new business opportunity for you as a partner to be able to create very profitable business cases and very profitable new services with your organization that you can then sell. We have a partner that created a mobile app for school districts, and they're licensing it, and even universities. Think about this: they now have a product that they can now sell a software subscription to to a school district for 20,000 people. So they can do an annual subscription and charge for their application to be used, and now that's profit to the partner. That's profit to you. Juniper's not going to do that. We're not going to make that. That's not our business. We're the platform. That's for you to build services on. We have partners that are building through premium analytics canned reporting processes that they're using with their MSP, or that they can just build as a consultant through services for these school districts. Right? That's profitable for you. That's a way for you to make additional funding outside the traditional services of architecting, deploying, and managing an environment, right? Again, it's all AI driven. We've talked about that. We have the support for contact tracing. We have all that. So there's a lot of great things to do here that you can build a turnkey solution, with this whole consortium of vendors and consultants and things like that SecureMatics has put together for you here, to where you can go in now and do this. This is not a future thing. This is, oh, I can do this in the future, or I have to wait for a product. This is something that you can sell and that you can do right now. So we're here to help you out with it. Let us know how we can help you and partner with you on this. You can reach out to me anytime. I'm a part of the partner organization. I'm here to help you. If you want anything else, just reach out to your partner account manager or come through the SecureMatics team, and I'd be happy to set something up. And Brittany Keenan's on here with us too, that supports SecureMatics. Let me know how I can help. If you'd like a deeper dive to anything, I'd be happy to set up some time to do it with you. And with that, I believe I'll turn it back.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, yeah,
Sam, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so anyway, I wanted to thank both of you gentlemen. I know that Bailey, I don't know if we could tee up any questions, or if there's any questions, I should say. So a few comments. First of all, great overview. It's a lot to absorb, right? I think that's why we're going to break up the next several fast tracks here in the future into very specific slices around, what are the various steps to get started on the solution. And the other thing we've done is we've really simplified the solution quite a bit. When we started this own journey in our office, our own journey, I should say, in our office, it was quite daunting. There was a lot of questions. We didn't know how to approach it. And what we did is, by that trial and error, we really figured out that we can come up with a very, very good solution that will be simple to deploy, that will be logical to deploy, that folks on the phone, if you have end customers that want to participate in these fast tracks, we can either have them attend as part of our regular sessions or private ones if you want to hold those. We've done those in the past. But the bottom line is that we're really looking at, on the technical elements of this, we're using the Mist Juniper platform. By the way, there's no other platform out there that does what the Juniper Mist platform does, which is awesome. And the analytics that come out of that are really the key drivers to make the solution work. And we walked through this yesterday with our own office, and we got on to the premium analytics that Mist has to offer. And we were very, quickly be able to look at occupancy in a room. For us as SecureMatics, we're looking at, can we determine occupancy levels? The conference room should have 10 people in it. Does that 15? Also contact tracing, meaning when someone is in the facility, if we need to do a security look back, that we're able to do that. I'm kind of stealing a term of one of our partners that we're working on a COVID solution with. But a security look back is like a camera look back. You want to see who's where, when, and how. And then also the ability to ensure that people entering the building have the right pre-checks by asking the questionnaire, and also by taking a temperature and making that fully anonymous. I've had some people come up to me from school districts saying, hey, privacy is the number one concern. We're not going to implement a kiosk because it violates the students' privacy. And my response back is that, first of all, with the selfies that are being taken, it's only vectoring certain information like measurements. It's not taking the child's picture per se. The second is, as well, I don't want there to be a database anywhere, even in AWS, that's going to house student names and IDs or anything. And what we've said is that they're just like a MAC address, a Bluetooth tag that you will match up, like a decoder ring in your own facility. We don't need to know any of that information. I think once we explain the privacy things, we also talk about their compliance, what their compliance goals are as a school. And once we talk about how simple the platform really is, and we're not boiling the ocean with a solution, then it's very digestible. So anyway, we'll go through all the steps. I want to leave some time for some questions. We have about 13 minutes. Bailey, do we have any questions or comments?
No questions, but if anybody does have a question, feel free to leave them in the chat or the question box. We'll get them addressed.
Okay, so while we're waiting, Sam and Mark, the next FastTRAC, we're going to really focus on what we call the first mile of the journey. That's going to be talking about, well, let me back up. We're going to talk about all the elements of the journey graphically, and then we're going to start to break it down to the first mile of the journey, which is going to mostly be around, if I look at, in my son's case, I've got a teenager who goes to high school. There's a pre-school questionnaire that the student fills out. It's mostly on the honor system. It's got some flaws in it because it relies on the honor system and kids rushing out half dressed to the car to get to school on time, and then they have this questionnaire that they have to fill out. Have you been exposed to COVID? Have you had COVID? What is your temperature? And in some cases they ask if it's a normal, above normal, and they set a threshold. Some cases they ask them to enter in the absolute temperature. So we've learned that's not good enough. And then following that logic, what happens is, again, I'm only going to draft from my experiences here, is that when I get notified as a parent, like you did, Mark, that there's someone who's been identified having COVID, and there's a lot of terms thrown out there to the parents, like, oh, we've done contact tracing. So a parent gets this false sense of security that the school has done contact tracing, right? Or we see it on the news and we see it, in our everyday conversations. Wow, they know where the students are and they can figure out who's exposed to who. But if you really start asking some clarifying questions, what you find out is that their definition of contact tracing is very different than everyone else's definition of contact tracing. There's no baseline definition. So the school, in this case, their example or their definition of contact tracing is simply this: any student that has been in contact with another student for 15 minutes or more. Well, so you may say to yourself, well, that may sound reasonable. The CDC just said that's a good thing. Well, the issue is that to find that data, simply what the school will do is look at an attendee list, attendance list for a classroom. It doesn't track any of the interactions of the students in the hallways. It doesn't trace anything with regard to lunch time. There's a whole bunch of interactions that happen that are outside of what they call contact tracing that no one is doing. And your hope is that At some point, it's like, and I'm sorry for the analogies here, but it's like me driving my car without car insurance a little bit. Chances are nothing's going to happen, but boy, if it does, I want to make sure I'm insured. So often we find school districts, again, anecdotally, are a little daunted by the solution. They tend to be more administrative in nature, and they really feel like it's going to require just a gigantic investment. And we're here really through the next several FastTRACs to prove that that is not at all what you need, that Juniper Mist has done a lot of the foundational work in your products already, in your analytics, that really simplify this and make this very achievable very quickly. So that was really good news to Securematics. It was also good news to Securematics that, you know, folks like Sam are out there really doing the what I call the whole solution, the technical and non-technical pieces, because I think customers are going to need someone to really advise them on the entire solution, technical and non-technical, and in a very simplistic, non-daunting way is also going to be very important. So I think we have all the elements here. I'm really looking forward to this continuing journey. We're in parallel, like I said, as a company, implementing this journey. So we're sharing best practices along the way. I think everyone's going to be very pleased to see and hear not only the journey, but the solutions that we're putting together, and the simplistic nature of being able to implement something. So Bailey, I still don't know if there's any questions. I could talk for another 7 minutes, or we can answer any questions or comments. But
No question.
okay, well, I'm doing such an awesome job of explaining everything that there's just absolutely nothing. And Mark and Sam's presentations were flawless. There's not even a question to be answered here. That's cool. I wouldn't doubt that, right? But anyway, the other thing to keep in mind is that this is a very sensitive topic. As you go around the country, there's varying opinions upon, you know, whether there's mask, no mask, tracing, no tracing. It even turns either far left, far right. You know, we try to stay out of that. We're very respectful that everyone has different opinions. We're just here to help. We're not here to push an agenda. We're just here to help for those people who are interested in this. We find a lot of people are interested, and we find a lot of people are not interested. So I want to make that really clear that we're not here to push any kind of an agenda. We respect, you know, people's wishes and desires. Again, we just, we want it to be more of a folks pull us in strategy versus us push, you know, our beliefs. And the other thing is that we really feel like even when COVID is over, there's going to be every organization is going to have a pandemic plan. If you're a corporation, you're going to have one. If you're a school, you're going to have one. And so it's not from that perspective going to go away. And then people often ask me, well, you know, what do we do with all this stuff once COVID goes away? Are we going to just throw it out? No. And my response is no. What was the big threat at schools before COVID? It was active shooter. And a lot of this technology really could be used in the physical security space as well. So this is what I call very leverageable foundational technology that we all could use for multiple purposes, not just a COVID solution, use it and throw it away like a disposable glove or mask. It's not that way. So I just want people to be aware of that. And there's a lot of developers out there that are very aware of it. I haven't talked to one product or software development platform person that has said, oh, we're just doing this for COVID and we're done. They're doing it for a platform that is sustainable for past threats, current threats, and future threats, whatever they may be, a pandemic, shooter, whatever. And a lot of schools were focused on, especially the active shooter portion of things before COVID. So, and then I think there's going to be a new order of responsibility where even the days are gone. I've said this in the past, where a company, an organization. I remember our own organization when the flu season happened. It was a really bad flu season, and we were like, oh boy, a lot of people are out with the flu. I think there's going to be a little bit more of a responsibility now to say, you know what, check in with the kiosk before you get in. If you have a temperature, respectfully, the company is going to ask you to work from home that day, and make sure we protect your health as well as the rest of the employees. So there's going to be that ongoing responsibility. So it's here to stay. I always say it's like the TSA, like it or not, it's here to stay. And we just are going to make sure that, we provide the solutions and the platforms to make folks successful. So any final words from Mark or Sam? I don't know if sounds like we don't have any questions. Hopefully we're not just talking to ourselves and we have participants out there, but
I would just throw out there that there's so many things that just remember. There's two key takeaways here. One is that the conversation, privacy is important to everyone. It doesn't matter who you are, what your beliefs are. In this country, I know privacy is important. People don't want their privacy violated, and to have these types of tools that allow us to do our due diligence and keep people safe, and also respecting privacy, is a big thing. And there's been a lot of misconceptions around that. So really remember that and talk to your clients about that. Number two is these things are here to stay. Touchless environments are the new norm. Doing more due diligence around illnesses, whether it's COVID or not, it could be a bad flu season, like you said, it's here to stay. Physical security, is here to stay. It's a new world. There's going to be some new things that we never thought of before. Now, do I think we're all going to wear masks for the next 20 years? Probably not. Some things will, be lifted once we get through this thing, right? But there are things to where, this is not going to go away. This is not I better get this quick because then the investment time's going to be over. Not true. And the other thing to remember is on the Juniper Mist side, it's a platform. You can do anything with it. You can take attendance. You can better improve the student's experience at school. I mean, it's not just about, pandemic, right? So just keep those things in mind when you're talking to your clients.
And Mark,
I just would like.
Sorry, Sam, please.
I'll just for the last minute here, just think about this again, like business continuity. You have to have a plan. We can help you make that plan, and then you can apply the appropriate solutions or modules, if you want to think it that way, that's applicable to that customer. So very modular, very flexible, and it can be very focused. So go ahead, Brian.
All right, great. I just want to thank you guys for your time and a good presentation. I really look forward to the next several FastTRACs where we really deep dive into the different elements of the journey and the solution. I think you'll find it, very informative and also very digestible. Don't be, it's not very daunting, as you'll find out. We went through that part already. I think that, you'll be surprised how straightforward it is. And that's about it. So looking forward to everyone joining the next FastTRAC, and thanks everyone for your time.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody.